guess I didn't say. What are you looking so sad about, Jam?
Man, I'm surprised at you. I mean, I'm really insulted. I mean, that's not right what you just said.
What do you mean, what I just said?
I mean, I'm getting a drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talking. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talking about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, Clay, one time during my career, I went on a Bomber of the Month tour.
Bomber of the Month? I would have been a bum compared to you.
When you been on the tour.
What's happening, everybody? Cat Sports again. Back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian, bringing you all that boxing history. Salute to Miss Cass. She's the wind beneath these sails. Salute to Mike Mazik. Salute, Mike. Salute to everyone. And welcome to another episode of Cat Sports, the Boxtorian. Today, highlights of boxing history. And we got some more highlights today. Got some good highlights today, too. How's the family this Wednesday hump day afternoon? Yeah, we're going to look at our fighters today, and then we're going to look at, we're going to write the best fighter by the alphabet, by their surname, first letter of the surname for each letter. Like, for example, A. Alvarez, B. Benavidez, C. Crawford, and so on, all the way through the alphabet. Best bet boxer by the letters. Okay, and we're gonna review the best opening rounds. We looked at them a while back. It's worth reviewing again. And then a little piece on boxing has changed. Okay, the country for today is Hungary. The boxing history of Hungary and some of the top fighters to come out of Hungary. Okay, all that today on Cat Sports, the Boxtorian. bringing you all that boxing history. Earl Spence, Tim Zoo this weekend, getting closer to it. Heard Mel didn't get his visa issues resolved, so he's not on the card. And he wanted the winner. He might still get the winner. Got to get another fight in first, though. Got to get on another card. He was ready, just didn't get his visa issues. We should have had that resolved months ago when he first signed the fight, but it is what it is. Okay, but we're going to get into our fight of the day in a minute. But it's Wednesday, hump day afternoon. Cat Sports the Box story. Friday, we're going to profile the Acorn, Ernie Shavers, for this week's profile. Okay? Ali gave him that name, that bald head. Ali said Ernie's head shaped like an acorn. Ali gave him the name, and it stuck. That was his ring name. Ernie, excuse me, the Acorn, Ernie Shavers. Excuse me. Take a drink before we get started. Then we're going to get into our fight of the day. Got a good one today, too. Surprised we never did this fight of the day. Big fight, one of the biggest fights in boxing history. Let's get into it. So now, without further ado, today's fight of the day. Okay, if I can find out where the cursor is, there it is. Today's fight of the day. Down too far. Okay. Today's fight of the day is Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier 1, March 8th, 1971. The fight of the century. The fight of the century. Let's talk about it. Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz, and more in the building. Salute, Bruce Gas. Good to see you today. I believe tonight is the night of the quiz over there on Bruce Gas. Great channel. Anybody in here on the playback, whatever, so get subscribed up to Bruce Gas. You'll come back and thank me. Salute, Bruce. Okay, the fight of the day today is Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier, March 8th, 1971. The fight of the century. Let's talk about it. Back in 2015, immediately following the announcement of a Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Manny Pacquiao fight finally being signed and sealed, excited boxing pundits began searching for comparisons. How does this long-awaited super fight stack up with all the huge mega battles of the past? Now, it didn't take long for an intriguing talking point to be established. Mayweather versus Pacquiao would be the biggest prize fight in terms of global interest and anticipation since Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier battled for the undisputed world heavyweight title in Madison Square Garden over 4 decades earlier. At the time, this was a provocative statement. Looking back now, it is a pathetic one. While yes, Mayweather-Pacquiao was a genuine phenomenon and, in terms of public interest, one of the biggest fights in boxing history, the contest itself should never be mentioned in the same breath as that of Ali versus Frazier 1, which was a super fight that not only promised action, drama, and excitement, but delivered, and in fact, exceeded all expectations. Okay? Exceeded all expectations. The Ali versus Frazier rivalry is nothing short of legendary, and is certainly deserves such status. Here were two gifted heavyweights, champions in any era of boxing history, whose personalities and fighting styles could not have been more different. Their relationship outside the ring was as complex as it was acrimonious. But for their genuine enmity to take on larger dimensions, they had to back up the offstage intriguing with truly epic fistic struggles. And unlike Floyd and Manning, in 1971, with the eyes of the entire world watching, that is exactly what Ali and Frazier did. Okay? Delivered. Big time. But in truth, even without the 15 rounds of fireworks, which these two great heavyweights provided, their first historic encounter entailed much greater impact and gravity than Mayweather-Pacquiao ever could. So compelling was this fight between undefeated champions, a unique clash with both political and racial overtones, that it became boxing's first truly global event. "50 countries purchased rights to the closed-circuit telecast, and the battle was broadcast to the world in 12 different languages, evidence of unprecedented worldwide excitement and anticipation. It would prove to be the most watched sporting event in world history up to that point. But how could anyone expect the fight itself to do justice to such a build-up and hype? And yet, it did. Exceeded expectations. Okay? Yes, it did. Now, attention must be drawn to the single most overlooked fact emanating from this fight. Joe Frazier's victory that night stands as one of the greatest in all of boxing history. Okay? That was the biggest fight of the three. But somehow Joe Frazier doesn't get his proper respect from winning it. Okay? Now, there are reasons why Frazier's singular performance has never received the acclamation it truly deserves. The most obvious one being that, justly or unjustly, Ali was the hero in the rivalry, the noble and charismatic one who had suffered for his religious and political convictions. Stripped of his title and boxing license after his refusal to be drafted into the Vietnam War, Ali ever after wore a mantle of nobility and larger than boxing significance. As well, in 1971, Frazier was slightly favored by boxing experts to win. They suspected Ali had yet to fully regain his form after his long layoff, noting that in his two comeback fights against contenders, Jerry Quarry and Oscar Bonavena, he had not looked particularly sharp. So they had Joe Frazier favored. Said Ali didn't look that sharp in his two fights against Quarry and Bonavena. Now, none of this should undermine the greatness of what Joe Frazier achieved on March 8, 1971, but it did. In part because in 1971, few people yet recognized Ali's greatness. The Louisville Slugger's image remained for many fight fans that of a dancing master who had won his title under dubious circumstances and who lacked the power to render unconscious outclassed foes, which many felt he should have stopped, such as Floyd Patterson and Ernie Terrell. But in fact, Ali was a big heavyweight for his time, and when he planted himself, he fired truly heavy artillery. Against Joe Frazier, he enjoyed advantages of 4 and 9 inches in height and reach respectively, and 10 pounds in weight. There was also no question as to which was the faster and more mobile fighter. Then there was a popularity contest. In an attempt to intimidate and outpsych his opponents, Ali went to great lengths to denigrate Frazier and isolate him from the black community, branding him an Uncle Tom and the white man's champion. Lamentably, Ali's chatter proved convincing for many, and he became the sentimental favorite. The insults cut deep for Frazier, who had gone out of his way to help Ali during Muhammad's exile from the ring. Frazier loaned him money, went to Congress to plead for Ali to get his license back. And Ali just went way overboard, way overboard. He had me stunned, Frazier told writer William Knack in 1996 for a Sports Illustrated article that detailed how, more than 25 years after the fight, Smoking Joe's anger was still fresh, still smoking. I thought this guy was a buddy. I remember looking at him and thinking, what's wrong with this guy? Has he gone crazy? He called me an Uncle Tom. I was the one that grew up like the black man. He didn't. I cooked the liquor. I cut the wood. I worked the farm. I lived in the ghetto. If I Tommed when he wanted me to help him get a license, I Tommed for him. For him. He betrayed my friendship. I sat down and I said to myself, when I get him in that ring, I'm gonna kill him. Okay? Simple as that. I'm gonna kill him. Yeah, Joe Frazier was mad, and rightly so. He thought Ali was his friend. And Ali again went way overboard. Okay? Such was Frazier's anger that his manager, Yank Durham, insisted on separate weigh-ins on the day of the fight so as to keep his fighter as calm as possible. Because Ali loved to taunt and trash talk his opponents, in part because he enjoyed the attention and the laughs from the media and spectators. But there was also a competitive element to his verbal attacks. His belief was that by needling and insulting his adversary, he could rattle and disrupt him and throw him off his game. But against Frazier, Ali's taunts backfired completely. Joe was never intimidated, only enraged, and that rage fueled an unstoppable drive to win, an astonishing display of willpower and physical endurance. Yeah, Frazier used that, Ali's insults, and turned it against Ali. So let's take a look at the fight then. Let's take a look at the fight. See how that played out, okay? The build-up was fire. Now, while the early rounds of the fight clearly belonged to Ali, their pace and intensity clearly were determined by Frazier. He imposed tremendous pressure, cutting off the ring and making Ali miss repeatedly as he bore in and targeted the belly of the Louisville Slugger with his power shots. Ali, in turn, did not dance, but willingly exchanged as he sought to take advantage of Joe's customarily being a slow starter. His pre-fight prediction of a knockout in 6 reflected his intention to overwhelm his foe with an onslaught of sharp combinations. But Frazier, following the tactical guidance of his genius trainer, the legendary Eddie Futch, kept bobbing low to force Ali to throw uppercuts, which in turn created openings for Joe's deadliest weapon, his devastating left hook. At the same time, Frazier was steadfast in regards to pounding the midsection, which further encouraged Ali to lower his guard. But while Joe slipped many of Ali's punches with constant upper body movement, he nonetheless absorbed tremendous punishment, even in rounds he clearly won. His smaller stature and shorter reach forced him to absorb 2 or 3 punches for every blow that he landed, as he forced the way inside where he had to be to have any chance of victory. Few men have ever paid as high a price for a victory as Joe did that night. Paid a high price, but he got the win though. It was worth it. Ali's prediction failed. And in fact, the round he picked to get Joe out of there 6th was Joe's best round of the fight up to that point, as it signaled Frazier's taking charge of the fight. Constantly moving forward and forcing Ali to work, Frazier landed heavy shots to both head and body. A tiring Ali, surprised by the relentless pace and Joe's constant pressure, took terrible punishment in the middle rounds as Frazier, unyielding and driven, imposed his will, forcing Ali to the ropes again and again. Ali came back in the 9th and 10th behind a sharp jab, but in the 11th, Frazier staggered Ali with a vicious left hook, almost dropped him, and dominated the rest of the round. By virtue of sheer will and aggressiveness, Frazier took the next 2 rounds while Ali rebounded in round 14. But then, Joe firmly decided matters with a dramatic final round knockdown, flooring the iron-chinned Ali with a perfect left hook. I mean, a perfect left hook. Put Ali down. The second the bell rang to end the epic war, Frazier, his visage a misshapen mass of welts, shouted at Ali, "I kicked your ass." And the greatest had no reply. Ali had thought himself distinctly superior to Frazier in every way, but Joe had proven him wrong in one of the single greatest victories in the history of the sport, maybe the greatest in the history of the heavyweights. Consider, if you will, the fact no one ever defeated a stronger version of Muhammad Ali, a fighter now recognized by most as the greatest heavyweight of all time. And few have withstood as much punishment as Frazier did that night to emerge victorious. It took everything Joe had, physically, mentally, and spiritually, to win that night. He was never the same after. The fierceness and strain of that first epic war with Ali effectively ended Joe's prime. Okay, there's a shot of Frazier getting ready for the after party. Face all messed up, but Joe wore those wounds proudly to the after party because he earned the win. By all accounts, Joe Frazier became a bitter man in his later years. He resented the greater adulation and financial success of Ali. And perhaps he also resented the fact that so much was made of Ali's victories, while his own were never accorded the significance they deserved. Frazier's career could become more defined by his 5 defeats, the only 2 men to beat him, George Foreman twice and Ali 3 times. Then his triumphs over a long list of formidable battlers from his era, the most competitive in the heavyweight division's history. How ironic then that it is Joe Frazier who forever owns the greatest victory of them all. Smoking Joe. Well, if the general public does not accord Frazier his full due, let boxing fans never forget, while there's no denying Ali's greatness, when he and Smoking Joe were still in their athletic primes, they went to war for 15 blistering rounds, and on the night, Joe Frazier was the better man. There you have it, the fight of the day. Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier, the fight of the century. And there's your winner, Smoking Joe Frazier. As Howard Cosell would say, Smoking Joe Frazier. Okay, today, highlights of boxing history. We're going to start out. We're going to look at, by the alphabet, the best fighter by surname, going by each letter of the alphabet. Like, for instance, A, Ali, B, Benavidez, C, Crawford, and on through the alphabet. Okay? That's what we're going to start out with. Boxing by the alphabet. Okay? Let's get into it. It's hump day. How's everybody today? Appreciate everybody for stopping by so far. Hope you enjoyed the show. Okay, yeah, first, boxing by the alphabet. Okay, the best all-time fighters from A to Z. Okay, let's talk about it. It's boxing by the alphabet. Okay. Now, the boxing alphabet, the best all-time fighters from A to Z. Okay. Now, there are boxing rankings by weight class. There are pound-for-pound rankings. And there are rankings that line up fighters as the best in the world from one era to the next. Now, all are good and valid rankings. But today, we're going to rank fighters by another system, the alphabet. Using a fighter's surname as a guide, we will list the best at each letter. Okay, let's get into it. The best fighter for each letter of the alphabet. And anybody in the chat can put their choice for each letter in there if you want to. Okay, because this is just subjective, you know. So let's get into it. Boxing by the alphabet. Right now. In 1 minute. Okay, here we go. Okay, A. Muhammad Ali. Okay, the best fighter at each letter. That's what we're doing. A is Muhammad Ali. Just a little brief summary on him. Okay. Okay, then Ali had 61 total fights in his pro career. Okay. He had 56 wins, 5 losses, 37 knockouts. Now, forever changed the game at heavyweight from one of ponderous slugging to one of skills and movement. Befuddled Sonny Liston to win his first title in 1964 and regained the throne in 1974 from George Foreman and in 1978 from Leon Spinks. Was calling himself the greatest long before anyone else did, but by the time his career finally ended, many agreed with the tag. Okay, a little brief summary. We go to B. Carmen Basilio. Looking at boxers by surname, the best at each letter. B. Carmen Basilio, the onion farmer. Now, Carmen had 79 total fights in his career. He won 56, lost 16, had 7 draws, and 27 knockouts. Fan favorite from Central New York, who's best known for splitting a pair of 15-round middleweight slugfests with Sugar Ray Robinson, winning the first and losing the second 6 months later. Fought Robinson after 2 reigns as champion at welterweight and was ultimately beaten in 3 more middleweight title bids before retiring in 1961. Carmen Basilio. Mike Rem. Okay, Mike, we doing boxing by the alphabet. The best fighter by surname for each letter. Okay, so far A was Muhammad Ali, B was Carmen Basilio. Let's go to C. A salute, Mike Rim. How are you today? Okay, C is JCC, Julio Cesar Chavez, for the letter C. Now, Chavez had a 115-fight career. Okay, he won 107, lost 6, 2 draws, 86 by the knockout route. Now, JCC turned pro in 1980 at age 17 and went nearly 14 years before losing his first fight, racking up titles at 130, 135, and 140 pounds along the way. Made his reputation as a murderous body puncher who could endure adversity before his determination paid dividends. In the late going, a TKO defeat of Melvick Taylor in 1990 remains one of the sport's most controversial stoppages. Okay, all right, let's go to the letter D. Boxing by the alphabet. Best for each letter. D. The Hands of Stone. Roberto Duran. Okay. Roberto Duran had 119 professional fights during his career. He won 103, lost 16, 70 knockouts. Terrorized the lightweight division throughout the 1970s before climbing to welterweight and had the Sugar Ray Leonard his first pro loss in 1980. Duran rebounded from a string of poor performances to stop Davey Moore for a 154-pound belt in 1983, and ultimately had losses to Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns before picking up a middleweight belt from Iran Barkley in 1989. The Hands of Stone, Roberto Duran. Okay, let's go to the letter E. Best fighter at the letter E, Mr. Flash Eladay, Gabriel Flash Eladay of the Philippines. There's Flash on the right against Sandy Sadler. Okay. All right. Now, Flash had 118 fights during his career. Won 89, lost 27, 2 draws, 33 knockouts. The Flash Eladay won and held the 130-pound championship for 7 years, becoming the division's first highly regarded champion. Fell short in a pair of tries for the lightweight championship against Carlos Ortiz, but maintained a strong following in the Philippines and is among the country's most beloved all-time athletes. Okay, Flash Eladay. Okay, we go to F. F is after E, right? Best fighter for the letter F is Big George Foreman. Big George. Okay. Of course, George had an 81-fight pro career, 76 wins, 5 losses, 68 knockouts for Big George. Now, Big George was a sullen, ferocious champion in the 1970s, and remarkably returned in the 1980s as a happy-go-lucky advocate for the 40-plus crowd, regaining a title belt with an improbable knockout of then champion Michael Moorer at age 45 in 1994. Now, Big George fought just 4 more times and never scored another knockout before finally retiring for good after a loss in 1997. Okay, the letter G. The letter G. The Pittsburgh Windmill, Harry Greb. Now, Greb had 298 professional fights in his career. He won 261, only lost 20, 17 losses, 48 knockouts for the Pittsburgh Windmill. Now, Greb was nicknamed the Pittsburgh Windmill and fought in an appropriate style, often simply overwhelming opponents with an incomparable work rate, held championships at both middleweight and light heavyweight, though he often weighed far less than his opponents, and also challenged foes at heavyweight. He had the only win over Gene Tunney during Tunney's pro career. Harry Grab. Okay, the representative for the letter H is Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Okay, Hagler had a 67 fight pro career, 62 wins, just 3 losses, 2 draws, 52 knockouts. Most people said he really only had 1 loss because he had got robbed in the 70s and then Sugar Ray Leonard. Okay, most people say he should have been, and 1 draw. One of the draws was bogus too. He should have been about 65-1 with 1 draw. Okay. The Hagler was initially unappreciated and avoided at middleweight. Hagler fought his way to the big stage and ultimately captured the title with a savage defeat of Alan Mitchell in 1980. He dominated the division for the next 7 years, including defeats of Roberto Duran and Thomas Hearns, before losing a razor-thin verdict to Sugar Ray Leonard in 1987 and never fought again. Okay, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. And Guts Ishimatsu. Guts just recently passed away last month. I think he was 76 years old. It is Guts celebrating. Guts Ishimatsu. 51 fight career, 31 wins, 14 losses, 6 draws, 17 knockouts. A native of Japan who turned pro in 1966 at age 17. He then lost 3 of his first 7 fights and 4 of his first 14, but eventually climbed the ladder at lightweight and failed in a fight against Roberto Duran in 1973 before winning a belt a year later. Defended it 5 times until a loss to Esteban de Jesus in 1976. Then he lost his final 2 fights in 1977 and 1978, respectively, and then hung up the gloves. Guts Ishimatsu. Okay, J. Representative for the letter J is Roy Jones Jr. We're looking at the best fighter for each letter of the alphabet, going by their surname. Roy Jones Jr. at J. Roy had 76 fights, 66 wins, 10 losses, 47 knockouts. Now, Roy fought far too long into his 40s, but in his prime, he was among the most athletic and purely talented boxers of any generation. Jones carried foot speed and punching power through several divisions. He became just the 2nd boxer in history to win both the middleweight and heavyweight titles when he defeated John Ruiz in 2003. The first fighter to hold titles at both weights was Bob Fitzsimmons in 1897, 106 years before Roy accomplished the feat. Jones fought nearly 30 more times after the Ruiz fight, but never performed at that level again. Captain Hook, Roy Jones. All right, we go to the letter K. Best fighter for each letter of the alphabet. K is Stanley Ketchel, the Michigan Wolverine. Stanley Ketchel. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Stanley Ketchel, the Michigan Wolverine. So they had the wrong picture up there. No, that's right. There's Stanley. Okay. Now, Stanley had 63 fights in his career. Okay. He won 53, he lost 5, and he had 5 draws. And he had 48 knockouts during his career. Now, among the greatest middleweights of any era, Ketchum was a murderous puncher who also tested the mettle against the best in other divisions. His 1909 fight with heavyweight champion Jack Johnson is the stuff of legend, ending when, after suffering a knockdown to the lighter man in the 12th round, Johnson immediately rose and knocked Ketchum out cold with a combination. And after the fight, Ketchum's corner realized he was missing a couple of teeth. Guess where they found him at? Embedded in Johnson's glove. Okay, L, the Ghetto Wizard, Benny Leonard. One of the great nicknames, too. The Ghetto Wizard, Benny Leonard. Best fighter from each letter. Benny Leonard for L. Okay? Benny had 215 fights during his career. He won 185, lost 22, had 8 draws with 70 knockouts. Nearly a 7-year champion at lightweight, during the best period of lightweights in the history of the lightweight division. Leonard is considered by many to be among the greatest pure boxers of all time. He won 185 fights in his career, but scored knockouts in significantly less than half of the victories. Ironically, a challenge for the welterweight championship was foiled when he was disqualified for hitting an opponent while he was down. And Benny was up widely on the cards, but he hit his opponent when he was down and he disqualified Benny. Okay, M, Floyd Mayweather Jr., best fighter at each letter. What's up, Body Watch? Body Work Boxing. Body Work Boxing. Yeah, Body, we're looking at the best right now, the best fighter for each letter of the alphabet going by their surname, okay? Everybody gets subscribed up to Body Work. Great show last night, Body Work. Told y'all missed it. Great show. Body Work Boxing, salute. Best fighter for each letter in the alphabet going by their surname. We're up to the M's. Pretty boy / money. Floyd Mayweather Jr., okay? Now, Floyd had 50 fights in his career. 50-0, 27 knockouts. Now, the premier pound-for-pound fighter of his era, Floyd worked his way defensive prowess series of elite competition. Now, late in his career, he signed the lucrative multi-million-dollar contract with Showtime and competed in mega fights with Canelo Alvarez, Manny Pacquiao, and MMA star Conor McGregor on the network. All right, at M, Floyd Mayweather Jr. We go to N now. Best boxer, surname beginning with the letter N, is Jose Napales. They call the man tequila, as in butter or smooth. He was a smooth operator. That's Jose on the left there. Man tequila. All right. Now, Jose had 88 fights in his pro career. He won 81, lost 7. He had 54 knockouts. Excuse me. Now, he fought 20 fights in his native Cuba before fleeing to Mexico when Fidel Castro assumed control in 1961 and banned pro boxing. Napales won the welterweight title for the first time in 1969 and regained it in 1971 following a loss on cuts to Billy Backus. A middleweight title try ended in a TKO loss to Carlos Monzon in 1974, and Napales retired after losing a welterweight belt a year later. Mantequilla, Jose Napales. Okay, we go to the letter O. Ruben Olivares is the representative at O. Ruben Olivares. There's Ruben with somebody on the mat. Okay, now Ruben had a 105 fight pro career, 89 wins, 13 losses, 3 draws, 79 knockouts. Pretty good knockout career right there. knockout ratio. 79 and 89 wins. Now, Ruben turned pro on his 18th birthday in 1965 and won by stoppage in his first 24 fights before going the distance for the first time in 1967. He defeated Lionel Rose for the bantamweight title in 1969 and then defended, lost, and regained his title in a 3-fight series with countryman Chuco Castillo over a 12-month period in 1970-71, and his featherweight titles in 1974 and 1975. Ruben Olivares at O. Okay, P. Okay, the representative for the letter P is the Hawk, Aaron Pryor. The Hawk. Now, the Hawk had 40 fights, 39 wins, just one loss. Lost to this guy nobody never heard of named Billy Joe Young. But Aaron had got mixed up in the drug world and everything. He really should have been undefeated or shouldn't even been in the ring fighting because he was real messed up by then. But he got himself back together. He became a drug counselor and everything later in his life. But yeah, the point he had suffered his only loss of his career, he was all messed up. Way off the rails, okay? But 39 and 1, 35 knockouts. One of the most dynamic fighters in recent history, and also one of the most disappointing. Pryor was unable to get fights at his natural weight, 135, so he went up to 140 and won big, dominated. They never managed to land a fight with superstars Ray Leonard or Thomas Hearns, but he did have 2 mega fights with Alexis Arguello and won both by stoppage. He lost some of his prime years due to chronic issues with drugs. The Hawk, Aaron Pryor. Okay, Q. Dwight Muhammad Qawi. Dwight Muhammad Qawi. There's Dwight and Michael Spinks. Big fight back in the 80s. Okay. Dwight had 53 fights in his pro career. He won 41, lost 5 knockouts. Now, Dwight emerged from a New Jersey prison to make a name for himself as the Camden Buzzsaw. Defeated popular champion Matthew Saad Muhammad to win a light heavyweight title and beat him in a rematch before losing a unification fight with Michael Spinks. Now, he rose to a newly formed cruiserweight division to win a title 2 years later and defended once before losing a pair of fights to Evander Holyfield. Yeah, you like to watch old fights. Those Qawi and Holyfield fights at cruiserweight were 2 battles. Yeah, Holyfield said the first one, he was getting ready to tell his corner to throw the towel in. Dwight was bringing it to him so rough. But Holyfield eventually won the fight. But yeah, those are 2 good fights. You like watching old fights? I recommend both of those Qawi Holyfield fights. Okay, R. Wonder who at R. Who else? Sugar Ray Robinson. Mr. Pound for Pound himself. Okay? 199 fight career. No, 198 fight career. Okay? He won 173, lost 19, lost 6. Had 6 draws. And with all his other talents, he's in the 100 knockout club with 108 knockouts. Sugar Ray Robinson, okay? Along with everything else, in the 100 knockout club, 108. The pick of many as the best fighter who ever lived. Mixed athleticism and violence, as well as it's ever been done, with sublime boxing skills and one-punch knockout power. He won the welterweight title in the 76 pro fight and ultimately relinquished it before capturing the middleweight championship on 5 separate occasions in the 1950s. I always say Sugar Ray could have fought in the 40s and retired at the end of the 40s and not even competed in the 50s and been a Hall of Famer. Or he could have not fought in the 40s and started in the 50s and been a Hall of Famer. He had two separate Hall of Fame careers, one in the 40s, one in the 50s, one at welterweight, one at middleweight. One of the best at both weights. That's why he's Mr. Pound for Pound. Sugar Ray Robinson. S. Shava. Salvador Sanchez. This man is amazing. The biggest what if in boxing history. Salvador Sanchez. Only had 46 fights. 44-1, one draw, 32 knockouts. Had that fatal car accident at 23 years old. Still in the Hall of Fame. Still thought to be the best featherweight of all time. Still arguably the best Mexican fighter of all time. Just think if he would have went on up into his career, an entire career up into his 30s. Wow. Now, a Mexican legend whose career was cut short by a fatal car crash at age 23. He won the featherweight from Hall of Famer Daniel Little Red Lopez in 1980 and defended it against him 4 months later. Beat rising 122-pound champion Wilfredo Gomez in a 1981 super fight and stopped future champion and Hall of Famer Azuma Nelson in his final fight in 1982, just 3 weeks before his fatal car accident. And yeah, when he passed away, I think they were in talks with Alexis Aguayo. He had a lot of big fights on the table. He was only 23 at 126, so he probably could have went all the way to 140. Salvador Sanchez and Aaron Pryor. Wow. That I could have died happy after that one. Salvador Sanchez and Aaron Pryor. Man. Woo. But Salvador had that fatal car crash. Biggest what if in boxing history. Okay, the letter T. The Fighting Marine. Gene Tunney. Fighting Marine. Gene Tunney. Now, Gene had 85 fights in his career. He won 80, just one loss to Harry Greb, 4 draws, 48 knockouts. Now, though he's probably best known for 2 wins over heavyweight Jack Dempsey, including the long count fight in Chicago in 1927, the stylist Tunney actually spent most of his career at light heavyweight and had 5 fights with Harry Greb. He beat Greb 3 times, had 1 draw with him, and lost the only fight of his career to Greb. The Fighting Marine, Gene Tunney. All right, winding down. The letter U, Paulino Escudon. Paulino Escudon. There's Paulino. Paulino had 70 fights, 50 wins, 17 losses, 3 draws, 34 knockouts. Now, Paulino had only one career shot at the World Heavyweight Championship, a unanimous 15-round loss to Primo Carnera in 1933. But the Boss Woodchopper was an early version of a gatekeeper in the division. He lost twice and had a draw with Max Melly, lost another fight with Carnera, and was stopped by Joe Louis, in addition to defeating future champion Max Baer by a 20-round decision. V, the great Pancho Villa, probably the best Filipino boxer ever. Okay, not Manny, Pancho Villa. He was the first Filipino champion. That don't make him the best ever, but other things does. Now, Pancho had 102 fights during his career, and he only fought till he was 23. He passed away at 23. 102 fights. He had 90 wins, 8 losses, 4 draws, 22 knockouts. Now, 90 wins, 22 knockouts. You can bet the farm that he wasn't a power puncher, okay? Now, the first Filipino boxing world champion, Villa assumed ownership of the flyweight title in 1923 with a 7th-round knockout of Jimmy Wild at the Polo Grounds in New York City. He went 23 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw in his next 25 fights, before a non-title decision loss to Jimmy McLaurin on July 4th, 1925. Wheeler fought shortly after having a tooth extracted and died 10 days later after developing an infection. Yet he fought like the next day after that. The doctor told him to go on bed rest, but he went on with the fight and got an infection and passed away from it. Yeah, should have listened to the doctor, Poncho. But still in the Hall of Fame, okay? And again, just 23 years old when he passed away, had 102 fights already. Wow, incredible. Okay, the letter W, the representative is Sweet Pea, Pernell Whitaker, Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. Now, Sweet Pea had 45 fights, 40 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw. Really only lost 1 legitimate fight during his career. Never lost in his prime. He had 17 knockouts. Listen to it. Now, Sweet Pea turned pro after winning Olympic gold in Los Angeles in 1984 and won his first 15 fights before a disputed title loss to Jose Luis Ramirez in 1988. He picked up a championship a year later and beat Ramirez in a rematch before rising to win belts at 140 and 147 pounds. Known primarily for defensive wizardry, and was 40-1 before losing 3 times and failing a drug test that voided a win in his last 4 fights. Never really lost in his prime because that controversial loss to Ramirez should have been a win. And then the other 3 losses was late in his career. Sweet Pea, Pernell Whitaker. Okay, X. X. Yep, found a fighter at X. There he is. Okay. Ray Jimenez. Okay, at X. Ray Jimenez. There he is. Let's talk about Ray. Now, okay, let's face it. Not only is there not many fighters with a surname that begins with the letter X, there simply aren't a lot of people, period, whose surname begins with the letter, alphabet's letter. But as you can see, there was a boxer found to represent the letter X. Now, we can't say for sure he's the best at the letter, but he's the only one we have. Okay? He's 33 years old from Dallas, Texas, and last fought in 2022. Ray Jimenez represents the letter X. Yeah, not many fighters, not many people, period. You know, the letter X, right? Okay. Y. The letter Y. Teddy Yaros. Teddy Yaros. There's Teddy squaring up against Billy Conn. Teddy on the left. They both were from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Oh yeah, and Jimenez's record was he was 20 wins, 2 losses, 4 knockouts. I don't know if he's retired, but he last fought in 2022, like 33 years old now. Okay, but Teddy Yaros. Now Teddy had 128 fights during his career. He won 107, lost 18, 3 draws, 17 knockouts. Another one is safe to bet the farm. He wasn't a power puncher. 107 wins with 17 knockouts. Teddy Yaros. Okay. Now, he's not the most celebrated fighter among the middleweights or among the Pittsburgh natives, but among the most prolific winners in either gathering. He won the 160-pound title from Vince Dundee in 1933 and reigned for 2 years. He had a 3-fight series with fellow Pittsburgh native Billy Conn, winning once, and also fought Archie Moore, Jimmy Bivens, and Ezra Charles, among others. That's a pretty good resume right there. Archie Moore, Jimmy Bivens, Ezra Charles. And finally, Z, Carlos Zarate. Pretty good fighter, Carlos Zarate. For Z. Carlos had 70 fights, 66 wins, 4 losses, 63 knockouts. 66 wins, 63 knockouts. Among the best punchers in boxing history, with all but 3 of his 66 victories coming inside the distance, including all 10 of his wins in bantamweight title fights. He won the title in 1976 and defended it 9 times through 1979. He failed in 3 bids to win a title at 122 pounds, including the final 2 fights of an otherwise successful comeback after a 7-year hiatus from 1979 to 1986. Okay, there you have it. The boxing alphabet. Best fighter at each letter of the alphabet. Okay, so now we're going to review. We did this a while back. The best first rounds in boxing history. Okay, the best opening rounds in boxing history. Okay, let's take a look at that. All right, yeah, that's Jack Dempsey going out of the ring. It was like 9 knockdowns in that first round and 1 in the second. It only lasted 2 rounds, 10 knockdowns. That's number 1 on the list. Okay, let's look at these best first rounds in boxing history. The country for today, time permitting, is Hungary. History of boxing in Hungary and some of the best fighters from the country. Got like 7 good ones. Laszlo Papp, probably the best, most famous. He won 3 gold medals. He kept going to the Olympics because Hungary was like Cuba, communist country. They wasn't letting their fighters turn pro. So he had no choice. He didn't want to defect, so the Olympics was all he had. And he won 3 gold medals. But then he finally turned pro at the end of his career. But we're going to get to Hungary later in the show. But the top 12 all-time greatest opening rounds in boxing history. Now, in boxing, as in most things in life, it's quality, not quantity. Excitement is the name of the game. And the greatest fights are the ones offering the most intensity and drama, whether they last 1 round or 15. But sometimes a pair of gladiators make a joint decision to get the proceedings off to a fiery start, and then the rest of the fight can have a difficult time living up to the opening act. So now here are the most thrilling and action-packed first rounds ever. The ones that mesmerized us, either because they offered 180 seconds of intense 2-way fireworks, or shocking shifts in momentum, or both. All right, let's check them out. Okay, the first one is Joe Frazier versus Jerry Quarry, June 23rd, 1969. The best first rounds in boxing history. Okay. Now, an extraordinary 3 minutes of non-stop toe-to-toe warfare marked the beginning of the 1969 Fight of the Year, Ring Magazine Fight of the Year for 1969, between Irish Jerry Quarry and Smoking Joe Frazier. As the 2 heavy-fisted heavyweights, both packing deadly left hooks, decided to test each other early. The entire round could have been fought in a broom closet, as both refused to willingly surrender a single inch of ring space, throwing and catching one huge shot after another. Neither having a decided edge in an amazing 3-minute slugfest. Frazier finally won it by TKO. Well, the referee stopped it at 7. Jerry Quarry had that problem that he cut easy. He lost a lot of fights on cuts. Okay, next. First round. Manny Pacquiao versus Juan Manuel Marquez. May 8th, 2004. How appropriate that one of the great rivalries of recent boxing history began with a blistering and unforgettable 3-minute stanza. For much of it, Marquez was on the brink of disaster as he absorbed a series of power punches from the southpaw dynamo they called the Pac-Man. 3 times, the Filipino blasted the Mexican to the canvas with his cannon of a left hand, but 3 times, Dinamita rose as he just barely survived round 1 of the Pacquiao-Marquez tetralogy. In testament to Marquez's skill and courage, he rebounded to win more than his share of the next 11 rounds and held Pacquiao to a draw. A lot of people thought Marquez should have got the nod, but an amazing first round. Some of the best first rounds in boxing history. Floyd Patterson versus Ingemar Johansson, March 13th, 1961. Patterson and Johansson were a match made in fight fan heaven, as all 3 of their battles were defined by big punches and wild action. Round 1 of their final clash was especially eventful, as it saw them exchange power shots at a torrid pace and trading knockdowns. Twice Patterson hit the deck, and for a moment, it seemed certain that Ingo was about to end it early. But then Floyd crashed home a desperation left hook to put Johansson on his backside. The Swede rose, and as the frantic crowd cheered them on, the 2 hurt warriors slugged away until the bell. Patterson ended up winning a 6-round knockout. But what a first round that was. Calvin Seabrook versus Terry Jacob, July 4th, 1987. Looking at some of the greatest first rounds in boxing history. Brooklyn hit salute. What's up, Brooklyn hit? Appreciate you stopping by. Cast Sports Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2 p.m. All right. Okay. We're looking at some of the best first rounds in boxing history. Brooklyn hits. Okay. Okay, let's continue. The next one is Calvin Seabrook versus Terry Jacob. This was July 4th, 1987. Okay. Now, just seconds into the fight, defending bantamweight champion Seabrooks put Jacobs down hard with a powerful right hand, and the challenger's hometown crowd went solid. They was in France, where Jacob was from. But Jacob rose, and what followed was intense, non-stop combat until suddenly it was the champion on the canvas, courtesy of the southpaw's left fist. Seabrook scrambled back to his feet, and Jacob pursued as the crowd roared, and the champion soon found himself down a second time. The Frenchman pounded his wounded quarry all over the ring, but Seabrook somehow survived the round before going on to break the hearts of the challenger's fans. Yeah, that was a wild one. I was watching it yesterday. That first round, it's on YouTube. It's worth watching. That was wild. Yeah. Okay. The next one is James Kirkland versus Alfredo Angulo, November 5th, 2011. Now, everyone knew this pairing meant toe-to-toe action, but no one could have anticipated the unbridled savagery of the very first round. Throwing bombs from the bell, Kirkland drove Angulo back, only to be struck with a vicious right hand that sent him to the canvas. The Mandingo warrior beat the count, but Angulo was determined to end it, and for a full minute, he unleashed hell, a storm of non-stop power shots that had Kirkland reeling. It was a gamble for Angulo, and one that did not pay off. Alpero punched himself out and suddenly it was Kirkland in command and landing shot after shot. The attack culminating in the first knockdown of Angulo's career, just before the bell. Yeah, some of the greatest first rounds in boxing history. Next, Aaron Pryor versus Alexis Arguello 2. September 9th, 1983. Now, if only Arguello versus Pryor had been a trilogy, because there was something about these two champions that meshed so beautifully, and the result was not just two unforgettable and action-packed battles, but also two ferocious opening rounds. And while both merit standing on this list, it was decided you had to choose between the two. So after careful consideration, round one of the rematch, slightly more intense and engrossing with the added excitement of an early knockdown. For rapid-fire non-stop action between two all-time greats, it doesn't get much better than that. Yeah, both of those first rounds was crazy. Okay, Ray Mancini versus Arturo Frias, May 8th, 1982. Some of the best first rounds in boxing history. Now, rebounding from his defeat to Alexis Arguello, Mancini went hunting for Frias' WBA title, but the champion wasn't about to surrender it without a fight. And in just under 3 minutes, Mancini and Frias gave fans as much or more action than most fights of 10 times the duration. As one writer put it, this was a whirlwind battle. Both men like thresher machines going haywire as they traded huge shots at breakneck speed. Both were tagged with tremendous blows, and both were shaken. But it was Frias who hit the canvas and had to be saved by the referee with just 6 seconds left in the round. Yeah, this one ended in the first round. TKO. Oh, for boom boom. Yup. Okay. The Ghetto Wizard, Benny Leonard versus Richie Mitchell 2, January 14th, 1921. It's Mitchell on the left, Leonard on the right. Okay, Leonard Mitchell 2. A truly legendary opening round. Champion Benny Leonard presided over perhaps the greatest lightweight division in history, and one of the pugilists who made it so was Mitchell, a dangerous puncher. Now, Benny had beaten him once before and figured he could do it so again, and quickly. He went for the knockout early and floored Mitchell 3 times in the first round, but then, to the shock of the Madison Square Garden crowd, the challenger rose from the third knockdown and promptly hurled the left into Leonard's belly, followed by a right to the head. Down went the champion. And so hurt was the Ghetto Wizard that he was supremely fortunate to beat the count. The biggest chance of Mitchell's boxing life stood before him, a dazed and teetering Benny Leonard. But before he could strike, the champion snarled at him and waved him in. With the crowd roaring, Mitchell, fearing a trap, hesitated and thus lost his chance to score what would have been one of the biggest first-round knockouts in all of boxing history. Yup. And then Leonard went on to retain his title by a 6-round TKO. But Mitchell had the chance, but he hesitated. Okay? The old mongoose is next. Archie Moore versus Yvonne Durrell, December 10th, 1958. These are some of the best first rounds in boxing history. Archie Moore, Yvonne Durrell, 1958. In an unexpectedly thrilling round, in an unexpectedly thrilling fight, Durrell came close to scoring a monumental upset when barely a minute into the fight, he blasted Moore with a thunderous right hand, and Archie hit the canvas so hard his head bounced twice. Somehow, Moore beat the count, but he was in desperate trouble, and he soon found himself on the canvas again. And then a third time. Moore rose, but it was obvious to all he was dangerously close to being stopped, and Durrell chased the old mongoose all over the ring and assaulted him with blow after blow. It appeared impossible that the former champion could survive, but somehow he did, as the crowd collectively held its breath and as Archie staggered, skidded, and backpedaled in the wake of Durrell's attack. But incredibly, before the round was over, there was Moore standing his ground and exchanging heavy blows with his tormentor as the Montreal crowd went berserk. And Archie ended up winning by his 11th round knockout. But he was in bad shape in that first round, but he survived it. Yep. Okay. Michael Moorer versus Bert Cooper, May 15th, 1992. This was a doozy here. Michael Moorer and Bert Cooper. Anybody seen that one? Wow. Okay, May 15th, 1992. 3 solid minutes of heavyweight carnage. Smoking Bert wasted no time getting down to business as he ambushed Moorer at the outset, driving the former light heavyweight champ to the ropes and scoring a knockdown just 40 seconds into the fight. But Moorer righted himself, and it was toe-to-toe mayhem before the tables were turned. And then, boom, it was Cooper on the canvas. Moorer's follow-up assault was devastating, but incredibly, the round ended with Bert retaliating with heavy shots. Crazy, brutal stuff. And to think, there were still 4 more rounds to go. Without a doubt, one of the all-time greats. Yeah, in the 5th round, Moorer ended up getting Cooper out of there. Yep, but after that first round, nobody thought it would go 4 more rounds. All right. And you know, this one, you can't do this best first round list without this one. It would be criminal. Marvelous Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns, April 15th, 1985. I remember after the fight, Richard Steele said he was tired. The referee, Richard Steele, said he was tired out after the first round. If you have even just a passing familiarity with boxing, you knew as we went down this list that this now legendary 3-minute interval of explosive warfare had to be on it. And you were correct. In the weeks leading up to their huge middleweight showdown, the mutual animosity between Marvelous Marvin and Thomas the Hitman Hearns only intensified, and the pent-up anger and hatred meant both were primed to unleash their big guns right from the opening bell. And that is exactly what they did. Hagler threw 82 punches in the first round. Hearns threw 83. Virtually all of them fired with very bad intentions. What a war. What a round that was. Yeah, the Bob father said in the build-up and promotion leading to the fight, they both threw their strategy out the window because they pissed each other off so bad in the build-up to the fight. Yeah, that's why it started like that. And finally, number 1 is Jack Dempsey versus Louis Firpo, September 14th, 1923. Okay. Now, more than a century has passed, but we're still waiting for an opening round that can top the carnage and whirlwind excitement that was unleashed when the bell for round 1 rang at the Polo Grounds in New York City for the heavyweight championship battle between the Manasseh Mauler and the Wild Bull of the Pampas. The sound of the bell was still echoing in the New York night when the 2 big heavyweights collided, and the first clean punch, a right from Firpo, put the defending champion on one knee, and Dempsey bounced up without a count. What then followed was sheer fistic mayhem. Contested before the advent of the mandatory 8 count in the neutral corner, the action barely paused for a second. Even when Firpo took one of his 7 trips to the floor, the brave challenger would scramble to his feet, and the second his gloves left the canvas, Dempsey would be right back on him, and the wall battle resumed. The neutral corner rule was invented because of Jack Dempsey. It was non-stop brawling and grappling and slugging, and then, just when it appeared Dempsey might prevail by first-round knockout, Firpo gathered himself and attacked, his potent right hand sending the supposedly invincible champion through the ropes and out of the ring. Dempsey barely beat the count and had to survive several more solid shots. The two exhausted warriors still exchanging deadly punches at the bell that ended the most thrilling and extraordinary opening round in boxing history. 7 knockdowns in that round. Eight. Dempsey went down once. Firpo went down 7 times. And then in the next round, Firpo went down one more time to finish the fight. It was like 9 knockdowns in 2 rounds. And after Dempsey got back in the ring from being knocked out of it, when the bell rang, he went to his corner and he asked his cornerman who won the fight. It was like, Jack, that was just the first round. Okay, so now we got a little thing. Boxing has changed. Time permitting, the country for today is going to be Hungary. Going to be a little bit of history in Hungary, history of boxing in Hungary, and some of the top boxers from the country. But first, the fight game has changed. Let's talk about that. Fight game has changed. Appreciate everybody that's in the building today. The fight game has changed. Okay? Let's get into that. All right. Wow. Okay. How's everybody this afternoon? Earl and Tim Zoo. They said Mel didn't get his visa issues straightened out. He's not on the card now. Wow. And Mel said he wanted the winner. Man, might still get him, but he got to get another. He got to get on another card and get a fight in. Over here somewhere. But it's this weekend. Earl didn't have no visa issues. He's in the country. Earl is down under right now as we speak. So they're going to get it in this weekend. Looking forward to that one. Very interesting fight. Good matchmaking. They're the perfect opponent for each other at this point right now, I think, Earl and Tim. But the fight game has changed. Let's talk about that. Now, since inception, the relationship between television and boxing has been bittersweet. Okay? Now, back in the 1950s, A.J. Liebling, journalistic star for The New Yorker and boxing writer extraordinaire, decried television as an instrument of destruction, at least as far as professional boxing was concerned. Liebling's view was that broadcasts on free TV meant fans would now have little reason to buy tickets to come to the arenas, right? You hear the point. This, Liebling believed, would lead to decreasing support for the nurturing of aspiring boxers, which in turn would inevitably result in the flood of talent entering the fight game becoming a mere trickle. Okay? He had a point about that fights on free TV. Less people going to pay to come to the arena, you know? When you can sit at home, you ain't got to get your wife's hair done and get that haircut and get all dressed up and everything. People used to put on their Sunday best to go to fights back then. Now you can sit home in your robe and watch it, laying across the bed, right? So we had a point. Okay. Now, the invention of closed circuit and then pay-per-view was instrumental in developing the biggest boxing stars of the modern era. But both can also be criticized for extracting money from fans for fights of little excitement or significance. At the same time, though, cable networks and the pay-per-view platform offered fans a chance to see big fights, which couldn't have been funded any other way, right? But for over 2 decades, exclusivity contracts between promoters and fighters on one side and cable networks on the other have threatened and sometimes effectively precluded the possibility of many high-profile or otherwise hugely attractive fights from happening. In other words, there's a reason we never saw Manny Pacquiao versus Sean Porter, but we did see Pacquiao versus Tim Bradley 3 times. And no one can say this was great for boxing, okay? Because who really wanted to see Tim Bradley and Manny Pacquiao 3 times? Huh? Anybody? Right? Okay. Let's see. Got some action going on in the chat. Yeah. Brooklyn Hit said Moore had the show dog. Okay. I mean, Maul, excuse me. Yeah, what did I say, Mel? I meant, sorry. Yeah, my bad. Thank you, Bodywork. He said Big Charlo didn't get his visa. Mel, who fought Nello, is the one who wants the winner, right, of Science and Tip of Spencer and Zoo. I always do that. Get them mixed up all the time. But thank you, Bodywork, for that correction. Okay, now, but I always do that. Okay, so yeah, who wanted to see Manny Pacquiao and Tim Bradley all the times? I didn't even want to see them once. One of the major obstacles for the long-delayed Mayweather versus Pacquiao fight was each fighter's affiliation with a competing network. This is the same hurdle that delayed the Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson mega fight and made a Sergio Kovalev versus Adonis Stevenson fight virtually impossible to put together. And it continues to plague the sport to this day. Don't believe it? Just look at all the great fights that otherwise could and should be happening. It's junior welterweight alone. If the top contenders in the division were free to compete against whoever they wanted, there's no question this issue is having an impact on the quality of boxing at the highest level of the sport, not to mention the careers of many top fighters. Now, one way to assess this is to look at fights which earned Fight of the Year honors in the past and compare them with more recent ones. For example, Sugar Ray Robinson took part in 5 Ring Magazine Fights of the Year. Muhammad Ali has the record. He partook in 6. Joe Louis was in 5 Ring Magazine Fights of the Year. And even the highest regarded defensive specialist of all time, Willie Pep, fought in 2 Ring Magazine Fights of the Year. Okay. So, tellingly, fans will have difficulty finding the marquee names of more recent times in a list of the best and most exciting fights. Manny Pacquiao participated in only 1 Ring Magazine Fight of the Year, while fellow stars such as Floyd Mayweather Jr., Pernell Whitaker, Oscar De La Hoya, and Roy Jones Jr. never fought in even 1 Ring Magazine Fight of the Year. Now, this may count for little more than anecdotal evidence, and it's true part of the reason for this lies in the fact today's champions compete less frequently than stars of the past. But the interesting implication here is that fewer fights means each fight is of greater importance, and thus opposition is selected more carefully. Okay? Fewer fights means each fight is of greater importance, and thus opposition is selected more carefully. Okay? Now, TV and promotional ties definitely have an influence on this process, especially for the biggest names, who also happen to produce the most money for the sport. Excuse me. Now, careers had to be better managed from fight to fight if revenue is going to be maximized, as earning potential can be severely dented by a badly timed loss. This just adds to the importance of avoiding risk, and for younger fighters, staying undefeated, since spotless records are sold to the boxing audience as a proxy for quality, regardless, ironically, of quality of opposition. Okay? They sell you the O, trying to tell you you're looking at a quality fighter, regardless of the opposition you've been fighting to keep that O. Right? Crazy. But that's a fact. Okay? Let me take a drink real quick. Excuse me. Okay, let's continue. The fight game has changed. Okay? Now, on a related note, although it's hard to quantify, there also seems to be a growing emphasis, at least at the highest level, on the importance of defense and mastering it at the expense of the art of offense. While it might seem counterintuitive to try to sell defensive specialists to the boxing public, when we know what the masses crave is action and violence. Many of the pound-for-pound kings of modern times have been renowned as much for their defensive skills than for their ability to attack or put their foes on the canvas. Mayweather, Jones, Whitaker, and Vladimir readily come to mind. But is it possible this doubly cautious approach to pugilism, cautious matchmaking, and cautious boxing is being encouraged by something other than television contracts and simplistic greed? Perhaps it's naive for today's boxing fans to expect prize fighters to compete with the same zest for combat as those of the past, in light of all we now know about the long-term consequences of practicing this dangerous sport. Now that's a good point. You know, them guys back there fighting 3-4 times a month didn't know about all the dangers and you know, didn't have all the science about how your brain and all that can get messed up back then, okay? So that's a good point. Whether you call it punch drunkenness or brain damage, the potential repercussions for boxers are both real and frightening, okay? Both real and frightening. It would be equally naive to pretend boxers themselves don't know about the dangers of the fight game, which is really no game at all. As most fans acknowledge, combat sports are a different sort of beast altogether when compared to the rest of the athletic regimen. You don't play boxing is a popular and accurate saying. But because of boxing's rich and long history, many watching from ringside at home believe that modern-day pugilists should try to match the accomplishments of the ringmasters of old. Despite the numberless tragedies of retired boxers who we now know suffered the ravages of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, we still somehow expect their modern-day counterparts to throw caution to the wind and pursue some abstract notion of fistic glory, while disregarding their own well-being and their future. And that's Matthew Saad Muhammad. He looked like that after every fight, win, lose, or draw. Okay? He's the poster child for you don't play boxing. Matthew Saad Muhammad, lightweight from back in the 80s, late 70s, 80s. He looked like that after every fight. Okay? That's true. Brooklyn hit, good point. We didn't have the Ali Act or the 1996 Boxing Safety Act back then. Neither one of them. Great point. Brooklyn hit. Yup, sure didn't. Now it's difficult to ignore the feeling that everyone, fans, media, promoters, sanctioning bodies, even a number of fighters themselves, all partake in a collective cognitive dissonance. We pay lip service to the dangers of the sport. We acknowledge the great possibility that many of today's fighters will end up broke and unhealthy to the degree they won't even be able to look after themselves and recognize the importance of providing them with the necessary tools to try and avoid that pitiful fate. Unfortunately, we also fail to actually take action towards those laudable goals and quickly revert to talking about who's ducking, who's getting overpaid, and who fights like a coward. Now, those are two brains, okay, right there, that picture. All right, right there. Now, the brain on the left is a normal picture of a normal brain. The one on the right is advanced CTE. Look at that, right? No wonder these old fighters can barely talk and move slow. Look at that. Normal brain on the left, advanced CTE on the right. Okay? And fighters back in the old days didn't have pictures like that, right? So, fighters now is looking at stuff like that. Brain damage is an inherent risk for all contact sports. And this one doctor said, all boxers suffer from some level of brain damage. Some minimal, some serious. But at some degree, all boxers suffer from a certain level of brain damage. Some of them is not even noticeable, but they have it, okay? And they said sparring is more dangerous than the actual fight, right? Okay. Now we're talking about who's ducking who's getting overpaid, and who fights like a coward. Now, this argument risks becoming a tirade against boxing itself, but that is not the point here. Fighters fight because they've chosen to do so, and it would be morally wrong to deny them the chance to make their fortune the best way they know how. But it would be just as wrong for fans and the rest of the non-fighting stakeholders to sit back and reap the rewards of the boxing business without properly acknowledging all the risks. Now, this is a good question right here. Listen to this Brooklyn hit, Bodywork. What's up, Moneyets in the building? Moneyet says, I'm surprised Roy Jones was never in a fight of the year. Nope. Hate that many pro boxers only fight once a year. That has to eliminate just as many good fights, good matchups as the network affiliations do. Yes, it does. But this is a very good question here. Listen to this question right here. This is a very good question. Now, with the greats of the past, Robinson, Lewis, Ali, Pep, have given as much as they did if they knew then what we know now about the dangers of boxing. Very good question. Would they have left everything in the ring if they had lived in today's world of painfully sharp awareness of the long-term risks that profession poses to their health? Right? Would they, if they knew the long-term risks that boxing poses to their health? Now, I do think that boxers back then did have a different mentality. Boxers nowadays just don't have that same killer mentality and to compete like they did back then. But that's a very good question. They didn't know all the long-term risks and stuff back then. They didn't have pictures like that right there back then of the dangers, right? Now, would they have willingly taken on one dangerous opponent after another, pursuing victory with the passion that they did if they knew in advance how they would be affected by Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or dementia pugilistica? Would they? That is a very good question. Now, it's hard to dismiss the notion that we are at a crucial time in the history of the fight game. The business aspect of boxing, coupled with the knowledge of its long-term health consequences, may effectively dictate a change in what professional boxing can offer fans. Perhaps an emphasis on presentation and storyline would take precedence over actual ring action. Defensive specialists may become more commonplace at the cost of offensive-minded fighters. That's already happening. And for fans, it may become increasingly difficult to experience battles at the pinnacle of the sport that can rival in terms of thrills and intensity such classic confrontations as Lewis versus Kahn, Marciano versus Walcott, Robertson versus Basilio, Duran versus Leonard, or Ali versus Frazier. The huge disappointment that was Mayweather versus Pacquiao in 2015 is perhaps the most noteworthy example of this trend so far, as the failure of that hugely anticipated fight to live up to even a fraction of its height was probably not circumstantial. Floyd has made the point time and again that second only to winning and collecting huge paychecks is the objective of minimizing his exposure to damaging blows. This attitude is likely linked to Floyd's awareness of the effects of boxing on the health of his uncle and father. A 2015 interview with Floyd, in fact, confirmed that. Yeah. Confirmed that. Roy Jones was your favorite? Yeah, Prime Roy was. Prime Roy was almost untouchable. Only lost once in the 90s, and that was a disqualification to Montel Griffin, remember? Then he came back in a rematch and knocked him out the first round, buddy, remember? Now, what this all likely means for the trade of prize fighting is an inevitable and painful loss of something close to essential. Now, while we cannot deny boxers the chance to practice a savage sport in the safest way possible, a significant element of the art may be lost. Defensive wizards can be great at what they do, commanding admiration and even respect. After all, specialization has its merits. But will we ever see complete fighters in the mold of the true greats? Champions who still take risks and are as adept at scoring knockouts as they are at ring generalship. If there's beauty in evasive maneuvers and counterpunching, what to say of the awe-inspired by the perfectly placed left hook that punctuates the barrage of punches and brings the fight to a sudden, exhilarating conclusion? Okay? Like that. Ali shuffled and Robertson danced, and they both ducked and slipped and weaved. But they were also great attackers, superb finishers with chins to match and a flair for life and death combat. Is that kind of well-rounded, complete talent a thing of the past? What about the willingness to leave the ring either victorious or on your back? Can today's elite level boxers perform with the same vaunted combination of ring skills while thirsting for war against the best every time out? Will any ever risk finding out? It's galling that someone in this era would dare to claim to be the peers of the fighters from the old days, even if only for marketing purposes, without having given half as much as they did. More than that, such a statement is disrespect to the sacrifices the greats of the past made for the fight game. For good or ill, professional boxing is changing significantly and irreversibly. Perhaps it already has. Fans may not get as much bang for their buck, and in fact, may be getting less than ever before. But maybe this is not such a bad thing. After all, boxers, for their near superhuman qualities, are also human beings. If they're now making informed decisions that will result in a better quality of life for them and their families in the long run, we'd be childishly selfish to resent it. But that said, there's no question that this means a loss for the sport that is so great, it is almost beyond calculation. One that guarantees boxing's golden age will always be in the rearview mirror. All right. Boxing is changing. Yes, it is. Okay. Yeah, Body Work says, don't know like how he's talking to Mel. Many boxers today. Well, get in there and punch him in the face. Got that heart in the way. I don't like how he's talking to me. Is that Mel? Okay, Mel, yeah. Boxers today, well, get in there and punch him in the face. Okay. Yeah, we got 15 minutes. We had a little thing on Hungary. Was the country of the day. Friday, we are going to talk about Ernie Shavers, the acorn. Remember, Ali gave him that name. Ali said, Ernie had that bald head. Ali said his head's shaped like an acorn and it's stuck. Ernie was wearing a bald head in the 70s when everybody else was wearing afros. Okay, but you're hungry. Let's start on Hungary. Okay. We only got 15 minutes, so I got to get out of here at 4. Let's see. Boxing in Hungary today. I always put the country of the day's flag up there. That's their flag. Okay. Now, boxing in Hungary has a rich, century-long legacy, anchored by an impressive Olympic pedigree. The Hungarian Boxing Association, the HBA, was founded in 1925 with early domestic fights dating back to 1910. Hungarian fighters have secured a total of 10 Olympic gold medals, 2 silvers, and 8 bronzes throughout history. The sports timeline in Hungary is defined by several key eras and figures. The pioneering years. The first documented fight in the country took place in 1881, leading to the inaugural Hungarian National Boxing Championships in Budapest in 1923. Just 1 year later, Hungary made its Olympic debut in the sport, and in 1928, Antal Koshish won the nation's first Olympic gold medal at the Amsterdam Games. Now, the Laszlo Papp era, he was the one that won. He was the first fighter to win 3 Olympic gold medals in boxing, only one of 3 to do it. But he wanted to turn pro after his first gold medal, but they wouldn't letting fighters turn pro. You had to defect. You know, like he got 3 and 2 other fighters from Cuba that also wasn't letting fighters turn pro. Teofilo Stevenson and Felix Savon got 3 Olympic gold medals, okay? In the Laszlo Papp era, national hero Laszlo Papp remains the most celebrated figure in Hungarian boxing. He became the first man in the history of the sport to win 3 consecutive Olympic gold medals. London 1948, Helsinki 1952, and Melbourne 1956. Now, although he later turned pro, they did let him turn pro eventually, like 1989. Although he later, well, I don't know exactly when it was, like 1969, not 89. The man won the Olympics in 56, actually. Yeah, but he did eventually turn pro. Now, although he later turned pro, Hungary's socialist government at the time deemed pro boxing incompatible with their principles, which ultimately forced his retirement with an undefeated pro record, 27 wins, no losses, 2 draws. He did get 29 fights in, okay? Yeah, he did get 29 fights in. Now, in the late 20th century success, Hungarian boxing achieved continued international prominence in the 1990s and early 2000s. Okay. Estvan Kovac won an amateur world championship titles 1991 and 1997, and an Olympic gold medal in the Atlanta Games 1996 before launching a successful pro career. Yeah, by the 90s, they were letting them turn pro then. Now, during this same period, Zawalt Erdei emerged as a top-tier fighter, capturing an amateur world title in 1997 and going on to have a decorated professional career. The Hungarian Boxing Association celebrated its centennial with massive public exhibitions and fights in Budapest, Heroes Square, reaffirming the sport's deep-rooted cultural importance in the country. Okay, let's look at a couple of these boxers. Let's look at Laszlo Papp. He's the most famous and well-known boxer from Hungary. One of three to win 3 Olympic gold medals and the first one to do it. Laszlo Papp. We're going to look at, like I said, the Acorn, Ernest Shaver's Friday. We always do profiles on Friday. And it's going to be the Acorn, Ernest Shavers. A little bit about his life, career, some of his best performances or biggest fights. Didn't necessarily have to win all of them, but just some of the biggest fights that he competed in. There's Laszlo on the right there, Laszlo Papp. Let's talk about a couple of Hungarian fighters before we get out of here at 4. Appreciate your body work. Okay, now Laszlo Papp was a Hungarian boxer. Yeah, we always get link time on Fridays too. Yeah, always make time in like the last 30, 40 minutes of the show on Fridays. Put the link in there and chop it up with some of the people. All are welcome. So we'll be doing that Friday after the Ernest Shavers profile. But Laszlo Papp was a Hungarian boxer known for becoming the first in Olympic history to win 3 consecutive gold medals in boxing. Okay. Won middleweight, 1948, light middleweight, 1952, and light middleweight, 1956. Widely regarded as one of the greatest amateur boxers of all time, Papp's dominance in the ring combined technical mastery, power, and resilience across a career that spanned both amateur and professional ranks. Now, he was born on March 25th, 1926 in Budapest, Hungary. Papp began boxing at age 16 in 1942, though World War II briefly interrupted his early development. He launched his senior amateur career in 1945 and quickly rose to prominence, also capturing European championships in 1949 and 1951. After his third Olympic triumph in 1956, he transitioned to the professional boxing in 1957. Yeah, I said 87, 57. I was 30 years off. How could the man win Olympic gold in the 50s and turn pro in the 80s? Come on, Cass. Yeah, he turned pro in 1957, right? Competing until 1964 under clubs such as BVSC and Vasas, while maintaining an impressive record and claiming a European middleweight title. Like I said, he had 29 fights altogether, 27-0 with 2 draws. Now, Papp's legacy endures through his pioneering Olympic achievement and influence on Hungarian and international boxing. He died on October 16, 2003, leaving behind a record of excellence that earned him induction into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Okay? And we gonna say these other boxers. We don't have time to go into them. I know y'all recognize one name, not this one. This is Zawalt Erdei right there. Another good Hungarian boxer. Now y'all probably recognize this name. He boxed in the greatest era of the 70s. Joe Bugner. He would have had a title in any other era, but he just happened to be in the 70s, the greatest era of all day is fighting Ali. Joe Buckner would have been a champion in any other era, but those 70s was just too much. Julius Torma, another good Hungarian boxer. There's Julius on the left there. Then we have Janos Variety. Janos on the right. And finally, Janos is the final one. No, that's Antar Koshish right there. That's Janos Variety. I looked up one little pronunciation app, had to say the names and stuff. Syllabalize them out. Yeah, but there you have it. Friday, we're going to look at the Acorn, Ernest Shavers. Another heavyweight that would have been a world champion in another era, but just fought in the 70s, the greatest era of them all. And that's the shame how they did Joe Frazier. He's known more. Joe Frazier had 5 losses in his career. In the great era of the 70s, only 2 of them great heavyweights was able to beat him. George Foreman beat him twice. Muhammad Ali beat him 3 times. And all those great wins he had, he gets noticed more for those 5 losses to Foreman and Ali than he do for his wins over some of the best heavyweights in history. Yeah, that's why Joe was so bitter during his career, because, he just don't get the props he deserved. The fight of the century, the first fight of him and Ali's 3 was the biggest one of them all, and Joe won that one. But he get overshadowed because Ali won the other 2, The first one was where the world was watching because they both had legitimate claims to the title. Ali was stripped, never lost it in the ring, but that wasn't Joe Frazier's fault. When Ali was stripped, Joe Frazier won it in the ring. So, and they settled it. And that was the biggest one of all 3 fights. Yeah, so Joe, but yeah, he finally forgave Ali on his deathbed, right? At the end of his life. Ali went to the hospital to see him. Joe was dying from cancer. And Joe told him no. The nurses kept going in there and saying, Muhammad Ali wants to see you. And Joe was like, no, I don't want to see. Ali stayed all day. Finally, Joe let him in. And then Ali had this picture with him when they was real young. I'm going to finish on this. When they were real young. And they were sitting on a bench. They had just got finished sparring. They were friends. This was before the fights and all of Ali's insults. It was 2 young boxers sitting on the bench side by side, Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali after sparring. And Ali tried to get Joe Frazier to sign the picture while he was at the hospital. Joe wouldn't do it. So Ali left the picture there. So after Joe Frazier died, his son Marvin showed up in Louisville. And he had the picture. He said his father told him to bring it to him. And Ali was like, well, and he had the picture. Joe Frazier had signed it, finally signed it. And Ali was like, you didn't have to come all over. You could have mailed it. And Marvin said, no, my father told me to give it to you hand to hand, bring it to you. So Joe wanted to make sure Ali got that picture. He wouldn't sign it at the hospital. But they did make up. I guess it slipped his mind to sign the picture. So after Ali left, he left it there and Joe signed it. Sent his son Marvin down to Louisville, Kentucky to hand carry it to Ali. Okay? But yeah, Ernest Shavers Friday. I appreciate everybody's support today, as always. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 2 p.m. We are here. The Acorn. So I will catch up with y'all Friday, okay? Because if it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Box Story bringing you all that boxing history. Everybody have a great afternoon. Appreciate y'all's support. Thank you very much. Take care.